Hi, I'm Marta, and on this channel I share with you simple recipes from all around the world. And today I'll show you how to make a simple yeast cake with a fragrant rhubarb topping. If you have ever worked with yeast before, you might have noticed that they like a little bit of warmth, and that's why summer is a perfect time to make such cakes. And feel free to use any seasonal fruits. It will be great with strawberries, blueberries or peaches. But one of my top choices is rhubarb. It is beautifully fragrant and a bit sour, which goes really well with my sweet and buttery oatmeal crumble. You really have to give it a try. In this video, I will show you step by step how to make a perfect yeast dough, and then I will tell you how to make this fragrant rhubarb topping. And as always, you can find the full list of the ingredients in the description box below the video. Okay, let's get started. This time I use fresh yeast, but you could replace it with dry ones without any problem. As a rule, when I use fresh yeast, I double its quantity. So since here I'm using 14 grams of fresh yeast, you only need 7 grams of dry ones. Whichever type of yeast you are using, start by sprinkling it on the flour and cover it with 1 tablespoon of sugar and 100 milliliters of warm milk. Aim for something around 30 degrees Celsius, but keep in mind that too hot milk will kill the yeast. I cover it and I let it rest for 15 minutes. After this time, you should be able to notice little bubbles, which confirms that the yeast is active. To this, I add 2½ eggs. I simply whisk the third egg in the glass and I add only half of it, keeping the rest for the topping. Now I add 2 more tablespoons of my homemade vanilla sugar, which is rather few. If you would like a properly sweet cake, go ahead and add 60 grams of sugar instead. Usually I prepare my yeast dough using a KitchenAid with a hook end, but this time I decided to show you that it's also possible to do it by hand. I start by mixing all the ingredients with a spoon and then I work it well with my hand. It takes a while, but it's worth it. My grandma gave me 2 advices about working with a yeast dough. The first one is to keep one hand clean so that you can run to answer a phone. And even though I don't get many calls, it is still really useful to have one hand clear of the sticky dough. The second thing my grandma taught me is to use all my fingers to knead the dough well. It is important to keep stretching it. As you are working the dough, you will notice that it gets more and more put together and less sticky. Now I add 50 grams of soft butter and I fold it in. Work the dough for at least 8 minutes, or half of this time if you're using a KitchenAid. At the end of this time, you might add 1 or 2 tablespoons of flour if you find that the dough is still way too sticky. Then I cover the dough and I let it rest for about 2 hours in a warm place or overnight in the fridge. During this time, let's prepare the buttery crumble. Into a bowl, I add flour and cold butter. I use a grater to chop the butter into smaller pieces so that even though it is very cold, it is easy to mix it with the flour. I start by quickly working it with a fork to avoid warming the butter up with my hands. I use my fingers only at the end to make sure that the flour is well coated with the butter. Next, I add sugar and oatmeal, and again I mix everything together as quickly as I can. To finish, I press it with my hands so that it all comes together. I cover it well and I store it in the fridge until I need it. When the yeast dough doubles its volume, I again knead it for about 2 minutes. You should notice that it became much less sticky. As you can see, my hand stays almost completely clean. Now I transfer it into a baking dish which I previously smeared with butter. I press the dough down and I try to stretch it so that it fills the dish. It really helps to keep your hands wet with water so that the dough doesn't stick. My baking dish is 32 centimeters in diameter, but you could also use one that is a bit smaller. Now I again cover it and I let it rest for another 15 minutes at room temperature. And during this time, I'm going to prepare the rhubarb topping. It's actually inspired by one of Nigella's recipes, which I will link for you below this video. These thin and red rhubarb sticks are ready to use. But if you have one that is very thick, like this one, then peel off the outer skin. I thinly slice the rhubarb. I transfer it into a bowl and I mix it with my homemade vanilla sugar. It is important to add the sugar only at the last moment, because if it would stand for longer, the rhubarb will start to lose water and we do not want that. After 15 minutes, when the yeast dough regains a bit of volume, I smear it with the leftover egg, which I mix with 1 tablespoon of cream. Then comes the rhubarb. And on the top, the oatmeal crumble. Now the cake is ready to go to the oven. I bake it for 30 minutes in total. The first 15 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius and then for another 15 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius. After this time, the cake will puff up a bit and its top will be golden brown. Have it with a cup of cappuccino, and this buttery yeast cake with fragrant rhubarb topping will make a heavenly breakfast. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to stay up to date with all my newest step-by-step recipes, do subscribe to my channel and click the bell so that you are notified when my newest videos are out. Thank you for watching until the end, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!